Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of Night Owl Video. And today I'm talking about the life and career of one David Lynch, who I mentioned in a previous video was a really important uh, filmmaker and artist for me in my life and really inspiring. So I thought I'd do a video talking about his movies and a little bit about his life and uh, this is just my take on it. I'm not a Lynch authoritarian or anything, but his films have been all through my life ever since I was about 15 or 16 years old. And I'm quickly approaching 60 now. And so his movies have always been with me, and I've always really loved his take on filmmaking and his commentary on the world and everything. So I thought I'd spend a little bit of time talking about his movies. I'll show my David Lynch collection to the best of my knowledge. Some of my movies are in another place, in a house where I sort of partly live, so sometimes things get mixed up. That could be the title of the video, David Lynch. Sometimes things get mixed up. But anyway, David Lynch was born on January 20th, 1946, and he lived to, I believe, 78, which was January 15th of 2025 this year, just a couple of weeks ago. These are pretty fresh wounds, and I have to be honest, like, I know this is going to sound dramatic, but I feel like I have not been the same since he died. And when he died was a Friday, and I was really, really sick at the time. In fact, I'm just getting over a cold, and which has hung on for like a month, which has been miserable. But he died on that Friday a couple of weeks ago, and I remember, I remember I was with my mom, and I just was looking at my cell phone, and I said, "Oh my God." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Oh, David Lynch died." And she was like, "Who's that?" And I said, "Well, he's a filmmaker." And that's all I could get out, because I was just like, I'm not getting into this with my mom right now, but why he's was such an important part of my life and my enjoyment of movies. But I was really like, not to be dramatic again, but I felt really crushed in that moment. I thought, I haven't felt this way since H.R. Giger passed away, or since Neil Peart died back in 2020 or whatever it was. Uh, just some, and I was just briefly talking to one of my friends, Sasha, online, and just saying, like, he was saying how, like, all of our, our heroes or people that inspired us from when we were younger are passing away, and that's life, and it sucks, but so suffice to say, I felt really weird since he died. Of course, with everything that's going on south of the border, of course, that's causing a lot of stress here in Canada. And that's also weighing really hard on me. I don't normally pay much attention to the news, but um, just with everything that's going on there, um, I found it really distressing. And I quit Facebook and I quit Instagram also. And I've been sick. And the weather's been kind of crappy. And so it's just all this stuff all at once. And it feels really heavy. And the loss of David Lynch was just all in amongst all that. And I thought, oh my God, I can't take much more of this crap. Anyway, so David Lynch, as a young man, studied painting and made several short films before making his first feature-length film, which is the independent body horror film, or as he says, his most spiritual film, Eraserhead. And I have, of course, the poster in my back scene here, which I bought that poster probably about 2 or 3 years ago. Eraserhead, I have it on several formats. This is, of course, the nicest one I have, which is the Criterion Blu-ray. I also have this DVD from the year 2000, as you can proudly see there. In heaven, everything is fine. And then a couple of years ago, my friend Eric helped me to obtain this bootleg Eraserhead VHS, which is kind of cool. Somebody definitely went to some lengths to put this together. They even made some labels and stuff. So this is a weird copy of the film. It has like Japanese like hard encoded subtitles in Japanese, which is kind of weird. I think it's Japanese, but yeah, I got that a few years ago. Kind of cool. I mean, likely the likelihood that I'll find an actual copy of Eraserhead on VHS is very unlikely, but. So I guess I'll just jump right into the movie. Oh well, maybe I'll talk a bit more about his life and then we'll get more into the movies. David Lynch expressed his admiration for directors such as Federico Fellini, Ingmar Bergman, Werner Herzog, Alfred Hitchcock, Roland Polanski, Jacques Tati, Stanley Kubrick, and Billy Wilder. He said, he expressed his admiration for all of those directors, but he said that Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard from 1950 was one of his top favorite movies. He also mentioned Kubrick's Lolita, Fellini's Eight and a Half, and Hitchcock's Rear Window as his other favorites. He also, if anyone knows David Lynch movies, knows that he loved Wizard of Oz as well, and even in one of his films, which we'll talk about in a bit, he even weaved some of that in. Sunset Boulevard's actually, since I read that it was one of his favorite movies, I did seek out a copy many, many moons ago, probably close to 10 years ago now, and watched it, and it also is one of my favorite movies. If you've seen that movie, you know why. I don't know Lolita, or surprisingly, Eight and a Half I've never seen, but Hitchcock's Rear Window is, of course, absolutely one of my other favorites. I remember seeing that probably in my teenage years on a TV on a weekend afternoon and in the summer, and it was just perfect. And I revisit that movie fairly often. I love that movie. I also love Jimmy Stewart in general, so that movie's a win for me. His films were often, as most of you know who are familiar with the movies know, that they were quite surrealistic, but also like grounded in this kind of like normal world. I heard somebody in another retrospective saying that it was like a Norman Rockwell esque kind of world, but that all this weird stuff happens in this setting, and that it's all kind of filtered through this dreamlike filter. This like you're never sure what's real and what's not, and even just some of the, especially in like Eraserhead. Look, I'm even doing a David Lynch-esque hand motion. Even in like Eraserhead and stuff, you get those weird filters where it's like the edge of the screen almost seems like dreamlike and fuzzy, and I just love that about his films. Oftentimes his characters are very exaggerated and bizarre and scary, much like Willem Dafoe's character in Wild at Heart, Bobby Peru, which I was watching an interview with Willem Dafoe earlier today, and he was saying that he thought that Bobby Peru was one of his most fleshed out characters in any character that he's ever played. Of course, we can't say that without mentioning Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet as Frank, who was, again, one of the most terrifying movie characters ever. He also, of course, liked his industrial landscapes. I believe he said that Philadelphia was his biggest inspiration growing up, and all of the industrial setting and stuff like that. He also involved what I guess I would call like split characters, or like half the movie is one character, but that character transitions into another character like halfway through. And what's cool is I didn't really ever really notice that, but when I watched Hitchcock's Stranger on a Train, and any of you have seen that movie, it has that dynamic. And as soon as I saw Strangers on a Train, which again I probably saw about 10 years ago for the first time, I immediately thought of Lost Highway and the main character in that film, how it's like 1 minute they're one person and the next minute they're another, and it all adds up to that sort of dreamlike quality in his films. And so I really, really love that about his movies as well. He was a big lover of music, and of course he collaborated with many artists over the years. Of course, Angelo Badalamenti was one of his main collaborators as far as music goes, and again, beautiful how he was able to use that music throughout his film career to create almost a sense of a universe, a Lynchian universe, although I don't really use that word a lot, but um, it sort of created this kind of like constant aesthetic throughout his movies. And much like Badalamenti's music, almost dreamlike, but also sometimes like jazzy and almost like elevator music, and very, very interesting. Um, his last album was Cellophane Memories, which was a collaboration between him and an artist named Christabel. I did pick up that CD back in the fall. I've listened to it a few times. I'm really eager to revisit it now, just with all the reflection going on with his career and that, because I'm really curious to see what else is in that album. Because upon first listen, I thought it was good, but I thought it was kind of very samey throughout the whole album, which I guess you could argue with Julie Cruz's music as well. Of course, Floating Through the Night or Into the Night is a great album. I actually picked up another Julie Cruz CD probably sometime last year or the year before. It's the one with the red cover. And I guess I didn't really think about her making any other albums beyond Floating, but that album, and I forget what it's called right now, but that's actually a really cool album as well. Almost like Floating, but like even a bit darker, I would say. Um, I also heard like through watching documentaries about him or the making of his films that like he was very obsessed with like the perfection of the scene, and you can see that clearly in the lighting in his films. And also I had heard, and somebody can tell me, I can't remember what movie it was, but like he was filming a movie, and it might have been Eraserhead, where there was a lamp in a particular scene, or maybe it was Mulholland. No, maybe it was Mulholland Drive. Yeah, there was a lamp in a particular scene in the film, and he apparently halted filming so that he could custom make this particular lamp and have it like just positioned just so in the scene, and like halted the whole production just so he would like obsessively work on this little custom made weird lamp that just gave off this certain lighting. And then he worked a really long time to like get the lighting just so. Now I don't know, I don't think that's a dream from my own mind. I think I heard that at some time, and it would make sense because he did make furniture and he did make other odd assorted items, and so it would make sense that he did that. But apparently he was very compulsive about the setups and the framing and everything behind them. And so, of course, this all added to the genius of his films. He was a big supporter of transcendental meditation, as probably a lot of you know. I believe he practiced that all of his life, ever since the mid or early 70s, and continued it all the way through his life, and was always a big supporter of that, and he was quite outspoken about it. And the only thing I guess I wish is that it was more available. It seems like there's a paywall to be able to experience that type of meditation. Um, but yeah, I think he was trying to help work it into like school curriculums and for veterans suffering from PTSD and seniors and things like that. So um, I don't know if it's any different than just meditating, but anyway, I'll leave it at that. I really don't know a lot about it. So, but of course, he was a big supporter of that. In 2020, he was unfortunately diagnosed with emphysema from a lifelong smoking habit, which he loved. He's said several times in videos, he loved smoking cigarettes and drinking really good coffee and espresso, and he loved women, and he loved industrial landscapes, and he loved Roy Orbison, who again was another practitioner of transcendental meditation. I think it was when, now somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he went into help or assist with the re-recording of In Dreams by Roy Orbison in the mid 80s, and he met Roy Orbison in a recording studio. And I think he said he was really scared to meet Roy Orbison because like he really loved Roy Orbison and his music. And I think like Roy actually like approached him along with his wife Barbara, and or he was, I guess David Lynch was in another room and he was meditating or getting ready to meditate. And Roy was like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, I was just going to meditate." And Roy was like, "Do you mind if Barbara and I join you?" And so like they got to meditate together, which just gave me chills because Roy Orbison is also one of my favorites. And so I thought that was really beautiful, that story. You could only imagine like hanging out with, or just being, as my mom says, being a fly on the wall and overhearing this conversation, witnessing these two, beautiful creative spirits together. Just love it. But yeah, he was diagnosed with emphysema, and I believe that was probably a contributing factor to his death because just before he passed away was the big fires in California, the wildfires, and he had to be evacuated from his home. And so I'm sure it was traumatic to his system. And rest in peace, David Lynch. Steven Spielberg wrote upon his death, quote, "Here was one of my heroes, David Lynch playing one of my heroes. The world is," and that's in reference to Meet the Fablemans, which was a movie that he made a couple last year, the year before, and David Lynch was in it playing John Ford, the director. And so Stephen continues to go on saying, "The world is going to miss such an original and unique voice. His films have already stood the test of time, and they always will," unquote. And so, yeah, I mean, David Lynch, it's cool too now that he's gone. So many people are well, I saw like a clips video where it had different celebrities talking about his inspiration on them. And so you had Ari Aster, and you had Bill Hader, and you had Robert Eggers, and you had Steven Spielberg, and you had Martin Scorsese, and all of these people saying like how much of an influence and inspiration David was to their careers and their lives in arts. So really cool to hear that. Of course, Laura Dern and Naomi Watts and all of those beautiful women that were in his films. And by beautiful, I mean beautiful actors and creative, wonderful individuals. And that they've also come forward and said like how heartbroken they were, but also what a treat it was to be involved in his projects. Kyle MacLachlan, Willem Dafoe, all of these folks saying, all of them beautiful and creative, and such a treat to hear them reflecting on him. And really cool to Bill Hader, for example, somebody I would never think of as or Louis C.K. as somebody who's a David Lynch fan, but hearing them talk about what an impact they had on their creative lives and their lives in general is really cool to hear. So let's get into the filmography. So of course I went over Eraserhead, which is by far one of my favorite, I would say my second favorite David Lynch film, but one of my favorite sort of more experimental films. This I did actually, if you go back on my channel, I have an unboxing of this particular Criterion Blu-ray, which is beautiful. And not only the picture quality and everything, but the packaging is beautiful. Got some nice shots there. The hole in the planet. And then when you open it up, there's the inside. I'll show you. There's, of course, Henry's bed. And the other thing I'll say about David Lynch, too, if I forget to say it later, is especially I rewatched Blue Velvet on the day he passed away. I rewatched it. And as an artist, you could clearly see every shot in that film, almost every shot in that film. If you freeze frame it, it's like a painting and beautiful in its construct. It's the layout, everything, the framing, the background, all the colors or the lack of colors, everything just really amazing. So yeah, this is a booklet that came. It's a beautiful booklet that came with the Blu-ray, and it has pictures from the film, and it also has some notations and things like that. So if you're looking for the definitive version of Eraserhead, I would say this is probably it. I don't know if I would imagine Criterion put out I don't know if they've put out a 4K of Eraserhead yet, but this to me is just beautiful, beautiful. Such a treat to rewatch. Again, I don't watch this movie all the time. I sort of try to savor it every couple of years because it is one of those ones. It's like you're going into a world for a couple of hours, and I want it to be special. I don't want to overwatch it like I've done some other movies, and it sort of loses a bit of its charm. But I rewatched this Blu-ray a couple of years ago and instantly taken back to that world. So Eraserhead was from 1977. It is available on Criterion if you want to pick it up. Elephant Man, I only have the VHS actually. Another beautiful movie. I don't have a disc of this. I would like to get one. This is also on Criterion, but I believe it's out of print, so unfortunately I'm stuck in VHS world, but that's okay. It still looks pretty cool on VHS, and again, I could do like hour-long reviews of each of these movies, but it would be quite an undertaking. But this is, of course, Mel Brooks picked up on David Lynch after he saw Eraserhead. I believe it was Mel Brooks that invited a bunch of people over to his house and said, I want to show you my favorite movie in my personal screening room, and the movie was Eraserhead. So this stars Anthony Hopkins, John Hurt, Anne Bancroft. This is from 1980. This is David Lynch's first major motion picture, like mainstream Hollywood kind of movie. Eraserhead was an independent film, so I believe mostly funded through AFI, if I'm not mistaken, and through his own financial contributions. I believe he had a newspaper route, which he would deliver film newspapers before they went to film, and his girlfriend or wife at the time would make food on the set, and they basically lived in this little compound and made this movie on the AFI, I believe. Felt like back lot or whatever you want to call it, even just like an abandoned building. So again, with this Blu-ray, there's wonderful documentaries on it, and they have the crew and David Lynch revisit the set like much later on, like into the 2000s, and it's really, really cool to see them go back and see all the sets. So Elephant Man. What else? Again, I could talk about these movies for so long, and maybe at some point I will do individual reviews, but Elephant Man, beautiful, black and white. Anthony Hopkins. Apparently, Anthony Hopkins and David Lynch didn't get along all that well, but wow, what a powerful movie. And I've just recently seen some clips from that movie with all of these tributes coming out and stuff. And I have to be honest, like that scene where he sits with Anthony Hopkins' wife and is looking at family photos, and then he brings out a photo of his mom, like I'm instantly crying. I'm instantly crying at that scene. Not to say the movie doesn't have its disturbing parts, because it definitely does, but it also has some really sweet, beautiful, tender moments, and so highly recommend checking out Elephant Man. His next movie, of course, infamous for being a bit of a flop. This was another mainstream Hollywood production with Dino De Laurentiis behind the production, and this was I believe a flop at the movie theater, and disappointing for David Lynch, because he had made the movie and then the studio stepped in and made him edit it all down, and then the movie basically didn't make any sense. I've never read the book Dune, but from what I gather, it's a pretty dense piece of writing and story writing, and so this deserved more than what it got here in 1984. But I forget who it was saying, like, when they first saw it, I guess I think it was Robert Eggers maybe, that said like he had seen it as a young person and didn't know any better, so he just thought it was like a really cool, weird movie, and that it didn't make much sense, but he was in for the ride, and that's kind of how I've always felt about Dune. I did have a really nice DVD copy that had like an extended bit on it, like a half an hour extension, but the disc didn't work, so I had to take it back, unfortunately. So I'm stuck with this one here from Universal. Yeah, it is cool if you like science fiction movies and kind of weirdness. It is quite cool, but I believe for people who love the Dune books, it was a bit of a disappointment, and David Lynch, I think, was really, really hurt by that whole experience, and that's why he decided to go ahead and get back into indie filmmaking. I don't know if I mentioned Dune was from 1984. He went back to the drawing board, back to one, and did my absolute favorite movie of all time, Blue Velvet from 1986. Again, this is actually the Criterion 4K, which I bought back in the fall. I thought I was buying the Blu-ray, but when I got home, I realized it was the 4K. This is like talk about paywalls. I mean, this thing was like $67 plus tax. I've never paid that much for a movie, but it is my all-time absolute favorite movie of all time, I think. It's yeah, I've always thought that this was my favorite movie of all time, and let's just go with that for now. I mean, everybody has a right to change their mind over time, but I've always loved this movie ever since I saw it back in the mid 80s. Yeah, beautiful packaging, beautiful documentaries included in the DVD, which I haven't actually watched everything on this yet. I did. I had say this was still sealed up until the day that David Lynch passed away, and I always said in my mind, like, because it's such a special movie to me, I'm gonna wait till a really good time to watch this movie. And I thought, oh my God, if ever there was a perfect time, it's today, the day that David Lynch passed away. And so I watched it that night, and I honestly cried a couple times. This is a really disturbing movie, but it's oh my God, I definitely want to do like a separate review just on Blue Velvet, but I cried just because, I was thinking about David Lynch, and not because the movie made me sad, although it definitely has some sadness in it, but it also has a lot of grotesque violence and extreme stuff going on in it. But yeah, I'll do a separate review of Blue Velvet down the line, because again, this is, if I ever did a top 10 movies, this is definitely number one. And I'll leave it at that. I'll be like David Lynch. I'm not going to explain why. But it's just that pure essence of David Lynch. It's the complete bizarreness in amongst this Norman Rockwell setting. I forget the name of that book he said he really liked as a child, that Mulberry Street or something, which is like very ordinary sort of children's book, but he apparently really liked the imagery in it and the colors, and it was an inspiration to him. And this is, oh baby, if you've never seen Blue Velvet, buckle in for a ride. This is Dennis Hopper recovering from drugs in real life and just being a wild dog in here. The beauty of Laura Dern. I totally fell head over heels for Laura Dern in this movie, and I've always thought she was like my biggest crush. And I had also seen Smooth Talk around this time, which is also a film that she's in. And I just totally fell in love with Laura Dern. I've always thought she was just so beautiful and so lovely, and her acting, although, even in Blue Velvet, she can be over the top. That's definitely, I think, David Lynch's direction telling her to do so. But, Wild at Heart, which we'll talk about in a minute. Anyway, hello, Laura Dern out there. If you ever see this video, I love you. Let's have coffee. So yeah, Blue Velvet, absolutely my favorite movie. That's available from the Criterion website as of the recording of this video as well. So now the next lot up, okay, so actually we're going to go back into Laura Dern territory. Wild at Heart. I don't think this is on Criterion. This is again a MGM DVD. This is from, what year was this put out? 1990. This DVD came out in 2004, so 21 years ago, if you can believe that. I saw this in the movie theater. Is this the only David? Yeah, I think this is the only David Lynch movie I ever actually saw in the movie theater. When I was living in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, Go Canada. Um, this played one Sunday afternoon at our movie theater, a one-time showing. And me and a bunch of my friends, all my French goth rock friends, went to see this. And I was 20 when this came out, 20 years old. And I remember people getting up and leaving the movie theater because they were so disturbed by what they saw, I guess. Willem Dafoe, of course, in here as Bobby Peru. I mentioned him earlier. He's right there. Um, yeah, this is David Lynch starting to go sort of rock and roll. This has got Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern as the main characters. Nicolas Cage, of course, doing his best Elvis. This is the movie with all of the weird Wizard of Oz references. Willem Dafoe as Bobby Peru. Apparently, I was watching this morning that Willem Dafoe showed up on set. David Lynch came out with his costume and said, "This is your costume," which was like I think like a black, like mock turtleneck with a black leather jacket, and Willem Dafoe was like, "Yep." And now he was saying, in ordinary situations, he would talk to the director. They would have a back and forth about what the costume was going to be, but in this case, he just said, David said, "This is my costume," and he's like, "I put it on, and it was wonderful." And then Willem Dafoe was like, "I'm all ready to go." And David Lynch is like, "Nope, you got to go to the dentist." And Willem Dafoe was like, "What in the hell are you talking about?" "Oh, you got to go to the dentist and get dentures made so that you have these really creepy teeth." I don't think you can probably see it on here, but if you freeze frame it or just Google Bobby Peru, he's got these really gross gums with these little tiny stained teeth, and he's so gross, like so scary and gross in this movie. But yeah, I love this movie. Rock and roll, through to the heart. So many good scenes in this movie. The scene where Nicolas Cage gets beat up by the guys, and he's like, "What are you, f words staring at?" Like, even though now it's probably considered like politically incorrect, at the time we were just busting a gut. Like, this is the funniest stuff we've ever seen. In the movie, of course, Nicolas Cage lights up two cigarettes at the same time. So I remember back when I was 20, like lighting up two cigarettes just to be like Sailor. And yeah, great fun movie. Disturbing, but fun. After Wild at Heart, we had, of course, Twin Peaks. I'm going to make a confession here. I'm not a huge Twin Peaks person. I have the Twin Peaks movie. I have only on VHS, but I love having it in that format. I have Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, which came out after the TV series, I believe, or right around the time. Again, a one that I don't have other than VHS. And then I have seasons 1 and 2 of Twin Peaks. I've actually only watched season 1. I've heard season 2 is not as good. But then there's the third season, which I don't have yet. But yeah, Criterion does have the Fire Walk With Me DVD, but it is also out of print. So I guess I'm stuck with VHS for now. Yeah, I'm not a huge Twin Peaks fan. I like Twin Peaks, but for me it was more the David Lynch films that I was into. I did not watch Twin Peaks when it was on TV, surprisingly, but I just didn't really watch TV. I've never been a big TV watcher, so I missed all of those things. Twin Peaks and X-Files and like all of the classic shows. I basically missed all of them. I just did because I didn't watch TV. I was too busy like either watching movies or playing in bands or hanging out with friends, and I just didn't really watch a lot of cable TV back then. So I just didn't get into it. But I do probably once I get the final season of Twin Peaks, I'll just binge them. I have so many series like that in my collection where I'm missing one season and I don't want to watch them until I have all the seasons. So I know Twin Peaks has a huge fan base, and so that's cool. I respect that. I do also have actually season 1 on the VHS box set, but I don't have it with me. After Twin Peaks, David Lynch went on to make Lost Highway. I have the VHS and the DVD. Pretty cool. I remember seeing that spine on the shelf at the thrift store and just losing my mind. I love how that looks. Definitely for me, like definitely like a fetish. I don't know. I was just like, oh god, I gotta have this. Still has the old probably a sell through tag, $9.99. Uh, I like at the bottom also it says Thriller. This is Bill Pullman, Patricia Arquette, and Balthazar Getty from 1997. Daily News calls it lurid eroticism. The New York Times says Lynch's best since Blue Velvet. Yeah, great, great, wonderful, scary rock and roll. And again, he's getting more into like dark territory. This soundtrack has like Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson and all this. Rammstein, which was the first time I ever heard Rammstein. Du Hast is on here, used very effectively, I might add, in the scene. But in that scene, but this is a movie again where the character is one person, and then it totally switches, and you're like, what is going on here? Henry Rollins has a cameo in here as well, which is amazing. Robert Blake, Gary Busey. Yeah, a lot of wonderful little cameos in here. But again, I think this is David Lynch like being kind of rock and roll more than surreal, because after this he goes very straight, and then he goes off the rails again. But I always felt like Wild at Heart and Lost Highway were that kind of like David Lynch being like a rock guy and sort of expressing this kind of more I don't want to say goth, but like this sort of dark sort of rock and roll or something. And I really just love those movies so much. So that was 1997. Lost Highway is available from Criterion on DVD and Blu-ray if you want to pick that up. Then David Lynch went to probably his most ordinary film, which is The Straight Story, which is actually I believe was a this is a Disney DVD, kids. Lynch Goes Disney. This is a beautiful little movie. One of my friends, Gary Flanagan's one of his favorite films, and we talked about this together, and I think we watched this movie together. But this is Richard Farnsworth and Sissy Spacek. Richard Farnsworth, beautiful, beautiful actor, also in The Grey Fox, and I always think of him from Anne of Green Gables, if you're a Canadian, of course, and especially a proud Maritimer. Go Canada. But yeah, this is a beautiful little movie based on a true story about a man whose brother was dying in a neighboring state, several states away from him, and he couldn't drive. He didn't have his driver's license, so he rode his ride-on lawnmower across several states to get to his brother. And it's based on a true story, and it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful filmmaking. And probably one of David Lynch's, not to be funny, but one of his more straight films, straightforward, and the narrative is very simple. Obviously, it's based on a true story, so he can have the liberty to make it really weird. Although the opening shot, I will say, I was like, oh, David Lynch. If you put that movie on and you're familiar with David Lynch's filmmaking and you see that opening shot, you'll go, oh, So that's from 1999. His next film was Mulholland Drive from 2001. This is also available on Criterion. I don't have that one yet. This is the Columbia TriStar release DVD. This, I would say, maybe a contender for second or third place as far as my favorite David Lynch movies go. Blue Velvet, definitely my top. Eraserhead, probably my second, and Mulholland Drive. Mulholland Drive might tie for second with Eraserhead, but this is a gorgeous movie. Like, if you're really into filmmaking and color palettes and the choice of colors and oh my god, this movie is a gorgeous movie. And David Lynch is probably, a lot of people would consider this one his best film, if not one of his best. Naomi Watts is in here. Who else is in this movie? I forget now. Justin Theroux, Laura Elena Herring, Ann Miller, and Robert Forster. I believe this was one of Robert Forster's last um, film appearances, if I'm not mistaken. Mulholland Drive, yeah. A Beautiful Mystery. Is this the one I think where somebody asked him what the movie is about, and he just said it's a girl in trouble. And yeah, it's a wonderful film. Very bizarre, quite long. It's 2.5 hours long, so settle in for a long ride. But uh, definitely Lynch's probably, I would say, most mature movie. Um, Again, it's the mysteries are so unbelievably wild in here. The color palette, the weirdness. I forgot to say about Lost Highway 2. I tried to watch that movie about 3 or 4 times when it came out, and I kept falling asleep watching it on VHS at home because the opening has, it's like he cranked the microphones all the way up and just let the hum of the air go, and then the voice would like boom and jar you awake, and I kept being lulled to sleep by this weird hiss. If you grew up in the time of tape hiss, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, this movie is really bizarre. This is the one that Billy Ray Cyrus is in this movie too, which is really, you're like, what? How did he get in here? Um, and then the last scene in this movie always terrifies me for some reason. There is a scene, the famous scene in it, of course, is the character coming out from behind the dumpster behind the restaurant. But for me, it was the last scene with the pop, the explosion, and the smoke in the bedroom. Like, that scene still just terrifies me. I'd like to have a poster of that actually on my wall. That's a beautiful scene. This DVD came with David Lynch's 10 clues to unlocking this thriller. So, pay particular attention in the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits. 2, notice appearances of the red lampshade. 3, can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kesher is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again? 4, an accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident. 5, who gives a key and why? 6, notice the robe, the ashtray, the coffee cup. Quintessential David Lynch right there. 7, what is felt, realized, and gathered at the Club Silencio. 8, what did talent alone help? Did talent alone help Camilla? 9, note the occurrences surrounding the man behind Winkies. That's the scary person behind the dumpster. 10, where is Aunt Ruth? So yeah, if you love weird mysteries, hypnotic weird mysteries, Mulholland Drive. And then the only one I don't have in my collection, which I did have a long time ago, and I don't know why, I'm not a big fan of his last film, which was Inland Empire from 2006, which is also available on Blu-ray only from Criterion. And there is an out-of-print DVD, which I guess would have been put out by the main studio. I wasn't a big fan of that movie. It was shot on video, shot on digital video. I don't know. I guess maybe it's a film I would rewatch down the road and see if I could appreciate it for another reason. But it's that's a hard one to describe, and I guess I just found myself lost in it to the degree where I lost interest, which sounds really weird because I love David Lynch's films, but that one for me just didn't fly. He's done a lot of short films. There's one on Netflix. What did John do or something like that? It's got a monkey in it. Would recommend checking that out. It's only about 5 minutes long, but it's also really cool. But yeah, you can probably find a lot of these shorts on the internet or various sources. But yeah, he did a lot of that stuff. Twin Peaks ran from 1990 to 1991, and then the Twin Peaks: The Return came in 2017. Too much praise. A lot of people were really excited to see David Lynch come back, and little did we know it was so close to the actual end of his life. But I think he was really happy doing that Return series. And like I said, I do want to just binge the whole series. So I will probably get around to that eventually. Yeah, so according to Wikipedia, he did 10 feature films and 46 short films, plus many music videos for a variety of artists. He also acted and had cameos in a lot of his productions, probably most notable as Gordon Cole in Twin Peaks. He was the man with the earpiece that yelled really loud. Talked about, I'll have a coffee and a slice of cherry pie, and just David Lynch being David Lynch, and we love that about him. Anybody who appreciates him as a person and as an artist just loves his wildness and his willingness to be both very ordinary and very surreal all at the same time. I would also recommend a great documentary called David Lynch, The Art Life. If you want to know more about David Lynch and get a glimpse of behind the scenes of David Lynch and his life and his creative life. A wonderful, wonderful documentary. I don't know if that's a Criterion, but it might be. I don't know. There's a copy at my local library, which I've borrowed a few times, and it's really, really great. So a huge loss for anybody who loves wonderful experimental underground and even slightly sometimes ordinary kind of like Norman Rockwell type life. How could you even put it into words about David Lynch? And now that he's gone, I feel like so many people are like saying, I just love David Lynch. He's just such a cool guy and such an interesting character. And his weather report videos, a lot of people loved those over the years. And even towards the end of his life, he was still doing funny things and just being creative and just being David Lynch. He is a character. He is a character in his movies, even though he doesn't realize it. He again, like creating that Lynch universe, and you could easily drop David Lynch in any of those movies and it would seem very normal. I could go on and on and on, guys. This video's run quite long, and but I feel like it's important, and he's such an important part of my life as far as my creativity and what I like to do with music. And I had to do something special. I apologize for being gone. I've been sick for so long, but I did want to finally get around to doing this and put this video together. I even staged it a little bit. I wasn't going to say anything, but I might as well because I know I'll probably get comments. This is my Deerhoof ashtray that my uncle who has since passed away. But yes, it's an ashtray made from a Deerhoof, and I thought as soon as I saw it when they were dividing up his belongings and stuff, I said, I gotta have that because, look at it. I mean, it is almost like, I could almost see that being in a David Lynch movie or video or something. But I would love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you love David Lynch films and you love David Lynch as a person, leave your comments below. I know it's going to have a long-lasting effect on me as far as a creative person to know that he's gone and not going to be making any more things. But we have a huge, beautiful catalog of things that we can revisit, and music and movies and artwork and furniture. And I really recommend that you go and do a deeper dive on him and his life, because he was so much more than just somebody saying Lynchian, or he's that weird guy with the weird sticking up hair or something. Like, so much more to this man and his life, and really, really beautiful. So leave your comments below. Tell me what your favorite David Lynch movies or TV or artwork are. Love to chat with you guys. I really appreciate everybody sticking it out. It's a weird time right now in the world, and as Canadians, we are in a very strange place, and my anxiety is so out of control lately with everything that's going on with the United States. And I encourage everybody to step away from social media, step away from the craziness. Don't let it infect your mind with this craziness. At the same time, be vigilant, and If you're an American who loves Canada, show that love and show that support and tell people why it's important that Canada stays Canada and the United States stays the United States. And I don't want to get too political on here, but stay strong, but don't, because it's so easy to let it infect your mind and your heart. And just, be brave and separate yourself from some of that if you're feeling stressed out or anxious about it. Um, for me, it's a process of stepping back, reassessing things, and then, of course, do the check-ins because you want to know what's going on, but don't let it take over and literally, and buy Canadian products and support Canadian local businesses, and tell your friends in America who support Canada that you love them, because it's a hard, weird, stressful time for everybody. And yeah, just stay true to yourself. And I would encourage everyone to go and do something creative or support a local Canadian business that's struggling or could use your support. Uh, Even this week, I love honey. That almost sounds like something David Lynch would say. I love honey in my tea. And so there's a local company called Cosman and Whidden. And I've been buying it at Walmart or the grocery store or whatever. And for the last 6 months or so, I've actually been going right to their plant, to their little house where they live, and create this honey. And they have a drop box, and you put your cash in the drop box, and you take a jar of honey. And this week had a really great impact on me doing that, because I thought, this is me putting money directly in local businesses, right in local Canadian, local Atlantic Canadian producers, and putting the money right in their pocket. And there's no middleman. There's no big box store. There's no corporate entity. It's just me and them and this product, this beautiful, tasty product in between. And so if you can do those kinds of things, I encourage you to do it. Again, I know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go so ranty. This video is for David Lynch and in the memory of David Lynch. And so with that, I will say goodbye. Sorry for the clogged up nasal passages and I know some people have criticized me for that, but it's just, I'm really still quite sick. It is beautiful where I am. I'm going to try this very gently, see if I can do this, but where I am right now, it's, I guess you can't really see, but it's snowing outside, and it's very beautiful. It's a beautiful, snowy winter afternoon here in Atlantic Canada. Shout out to Tanya, and shout out to Corey, and shout out to all of my friends who I am trying to stay in connection with, even though I've left Instagram and Facebook. And anybody out there who is one of my old friends from those platforms that wants to reach out to me, you can leave comments here below, and we can get in touch with each other. I did try Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. This is more on a personal level, but it seems there's quite a bit of political stuff on there, which I'm not really into. I'm hoping to find another creative platform. So if anyone has any good suggestions for that, I do like to post my artwork and things like that. So if anyone has any good suggestions for that, hit me up in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already and you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. Give me the thumbs up if you like this content. And again, final thoughts, leave your thoughts about David Lynch below in the comments below. Love to chat with you guys. And go watch a David Lynch movie this afternoon. You will be rewarded with wonderful, terrifying, colorful, surreal, dreamlike beautiness in all of its essence and essences. And that's it for me for today. Thank you if you've watched all the way to the end. And that's it for me for today. I will see you again in another video. Oh, before I leave, I did find a copy of The Substance on Blu-ray. I did watch the movie. My mind is currently reeling from that film, so I will be doing a review of that soon. So that's it for me. Until next time, I will see you at the video store or at the thrift store, or maybe in some surreal industrial landscape, having a conversation with Willem Dafoe with bad dentures. But Until next time, take really good care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. Give them a hug, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.